All right, welcome back to another episode of the Pink Couch Conversations with me, your host Dio. I'm super excited to have a special guest here today. I'm going to let her introduce herself, share your name, and share what your favorite thing about being a woman in law is.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia. I'm a 2L, and my favorite thing about being a woman in law is the community that we have created for ourselves within.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I feel like the women of color like
Yes,
space and,
we
and
all
like
find each other.
exactly. Because we have to, like, there's so few of us, especially like in like the social media space. There's so few of us that's like when you see
Mhm.
someone who's a woman of color in law, you're like, can we be friends like
Follow, follow,
immediately?
follow.
Yes, literally, I agree. So my first question for you is, how has your like experiences, your background, your family, whatever, like influenced your decision to go to law school?
Yeah, so originally I actually wanted to be a doctor, which is, very much the stereotypical like child of immigrant situation. I call myself like a one and a half gen sort of situation because my dad is an immigrant, my mom is not. Her family's been here for like a few generations, so I don't think it's like the complete story to just say like completely first gen. And so like growing up, I saw my dad like doing night school, like he had to get his GED when he came here and all that kind of stuff. And I knew something I knew that education was something that my parents like expected out of me and my siblings, and it was very much like you're going to do high school, you're going to go to college, you're going to figure out what you want to do. That changed a little bit because my older brother went to college for like a year and flunked out, and they were like, okay, so maybe that's not the only option. And then I was the kid that came in and I was like, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to do this and that, all the stuff. And I got to undergrad, did a bunch of bio, hated it. And I was taking Spanish at the same time, loved the humanities kind of sphere. And all my extracurriculars were like volunteer related, translating related, and that kind of stuff. And then my senior year, I just kind of had a crisis after I took the MCAT and was like, I don't think I can go to medical school. None of the opportunities that I look for, that I seek out, that I end up doing are even like remotely hospital, medical, research related. And so I kind of sat down and I thought, what else could I do with what I feel like my skill set is? I talked to my advisor, I talked to some friends who were looking into going to law school, and I just felt like it was something where reading, writing, analysis, caring about people was all incorporated because I've also been one of those people that's like, I always want to do a helping profession. And I was a teacher after I finished school. So like that was another helping profession that I did. And so I ended up taking the LSAT and doing all the applications, going through it. And I just felt like coming in, I wanted to do something that would help people in a similar position to me, would help people see themselves in a similar position. And so that's also part of the reason why I ended up at law school.
So what was so okay? So you decided to go from medical school to law school. Once you made that decision, you took the LSAT, you applied all those things. Did you? Well, I mean, like, did you take a gap year before you decided
Yeah,
to
I
apply?
did.
Okay, so what was that like? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I actually worked at kind of like a dual daycare elementary school that was connected to my university. So I worked there all of undergrad, like from a freshman all the way through. And then when I graduated, I was like, I need to get a job for this gap year because I'm way late in figuring out what I want to do with my life. So I have to take a gap year. What am I going to do? And I went and just like talked to the supervisors there and like the head teachers and stuff. And I was like, listen, I really want to keep working here. Are there any positions that I could do? Because originally I was just like a student assistant who did translating and stuff, but it was mostly just like childcare situation. So then once I asked them, it was more of like an official teaching position. So I was like an assistant teacher in a classroom with another teacher. And then I was like the Spanish speaking teacher and the other teacher was the English speaking teacher.
That's so interesting. How I'm really curious now because I'm gonna ask you this originally, but like, how has that experience helped you? I know you made this post. Actually, it's very relevant because you made a post about all the jobs you had before coming to law school. How has that job in particular like helped you in law school, if it has at all?
I think in general, keeping up my Spanish skills has helped immensely because while in law school, I do a ton of pro bono and I actually sit on the student advisory board of our pro bono. So every single week, I run a clinic with a couple other students who run it with me. And I'm in charge of like all the translating, all the taking of information from people that come in, whether they speak English or Spanish. Sometimes I sit down with the clients and translate for them with the attorneys. So I use my Spanish at least once a week. So that's been like completely invaluable just to have like kept up the skill while I wasn't in school officially studying it.
Wow, I love that. I love that. I love that. Okay, so med school, law school, you're in. made it. How has your first year experience been in law school? Like, did you feel prepared? Like, what did the difficulty of the classes meet your expectations? Like, what was that experience like?
One all year particularly, I loved the doctrinals. I could have gone without the writing. And my last year of undergrad, I took a technical writing class because I pivoted my senior year. So then I took technical writing just to be like, is this for me? Is this the vibe? I knew I would have time to still figure it out. So I took it completely different, got into law school, and I was like, I hate this. There are no assessments. I don't know if I know anything. I don't know if I'm doing literally anything right. And that was really frustrating for me because I'm a person who, if there's something that I have to do, I'll keep up super, super well. But it's so much harder for me to stay completely internally motivated. I do need like that little bit of external something to keep me going. And so that was really difficult first semester. And second semester got a lot easier. I had a small study group. We were all super serious about it. And it kept us on pace. It kept us doing like what we needed to do. Oh no, somebody's calling me. That got interrupted. Anyway, going back. So second semester I had like a much more serious study group, and that helped me kind of keep pace and keep outlining when I needed to and keep on track. So that was super helpful. Also just, oh my God. Good Lord. Stop calling me people. So yes, study group, which made it a lot easier, and I was a lot more invested in the classes second semester, which I think is like an unpopular opinion at my school because second semester is Civ Pro, property, and con law. So I was like, I love this stuff. Everybody was like, no, like send me back to criminal law. Like I don't want to be here. But I think just really like understanding that I need a little bit of something outside myself to stay motivated, and also that my work-life balance really matters to me, and it also really helps me a lot to continue to do well in school and not just focus on doing well in school and like burning out on academic validation and all those kind of things.
No, that's really real. That's really, really real. I love that you talked about like having a study group because I'm really curious about how your social experience has been at law school. In law school, I know when we first talked, we talked about how like law school unexpectedly for me was like had a very like high schooly vibe. I want to hear more about that. How did you find community like with all the cliquey energy of law school? Yeah.
Yeah. I think right away I established like a pretty good group of friends. I had my roommate who's also in law school, so we kind of got to like come in as partners and like sit by each other in class and like not have to worry about like who are we going to sit by, who are we going to talk to, who are we going to eat lunch with. It's completely high school. At times it's even middle schooly, you know. People just have like their little squads that they stay with. And I was kind of similar first semester, and I've talked about this before, but like the social aspects of law school were so much harder for me than school. And I stressed so much more about like personal relationships than I did about the actual material. And first semester, I like really realized that I'm just like not used to having a core group. I'm used to having like a bunch of little friend groups and like a lot of individual, like really good friendships. And I felt really limited by the fact that I kind of like got bunched in with a group super quickly. So then I made like a really conscious and active effort to like stay around other people that I wanted to be friends with and ask them to do things with me. And luckily I got assigned like a really fantastic mentor, and she was a 3L. So it was super good to have like somebody else who wasn't in my class that could just like really ground me in things. And then also my school has like all sorts of affinity groups. And there's actually one other Moroccan at my school. So I hang out with her and talk to her a lot. So we've like found each other.
I love that. That's so cute. I love that so much because that's like rare. I don't think I've met anyone who's Moroccan like ever in my life. So that's a gem to have that access. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. You mentioned this a little bit about like staying grounded, and you talked about. Oh well, yeah. So I want to hear more about how have you been working to stay grounded in law school? Yeah, just those questions.
Yeah. I think my 1L year, I spent so much time at the school. Like I was very much, this is my 9 to 5. I'm here early. I'm staying after class, that kind of stuff. And while it worked, I think it put me too much like in the limelight of the social stuff. And I was also like a heavy bar review goer. Even if I wasn't always drinking, I was like almost always there, like socializing. And this semester I've kind of taken a step back, mostly just because I don't enjoy the bar view life as much as I did my 1 all year. And then I also think too, like I feel like I have more flexibility now, but I also have more things that I am in charge of. So like I do my pro bono, like obviously I'm doing like TikTok, Instagram, I'm doing my classes, I'm doing like all those kind of like outside things, and also putting a lot more focus on the relationships that I have with other people outside of law school. So I'm really fortunate to have moved somewhere where I have a few friends from undergrad. I actually have a cousin that lives here. So I spend time with those friends that I already had before that I want to maintain. And then I also see my cousin a lot, and I actually nanny for her now, which has been really good. So I get to like work 1 day a week, but it's at my cousin's house. So it's like kind of a nice break from the law school bubble that's helped me just like in a way focus more on myself and not so much like those relationships that don't necessarily or are not necessarily what I want them to be or will never be what I think they should be, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. You said there were so many gems in what you just said that I want to like parse through that. One, your TikTok and your Instagram. What was your motivation for like even creating that? And then two, what was my other question? I'll think of it as I let you answer because I just forgot it.
Okay. Yeah, I made my TikTok right before 1 all year, and I really wanted it to serve as one, a video diary of like everything that's going on, everything that I'm doing. And then two, just to like be a platform where someone like me a year before who was thinking about law school, like studying for the LSAT, what would I have wanted to see? Because I had like a personal TikTok where I would like follow some like law talk creators and just like see what law school was like, and I never felt like I related to it or felt like it would be what my experience was like, because I saw a lot of people just like bawling their eyes out about school and stressing and pulling all nighters or just like being wildly social, and like it never seemed like they were doing school. And I didn't feel like there was a lot of content that like struck a balance, because I saw it and I was like, I'm like not a crier over school. Yeah, I get overwhelmed, but it usually doesn't come out in like crying or like I talk about it and figure it out. So I was like, what is my experience going to be like? And I thought if I just show people what it's like, then maybe there'll be like a happy medium, or more people will feel like empowered to share what it has been like for them. So
I definitely agree. I feel like your content is definitely like normal law school vibes. Like it's just not on the extremes of like fuck law school, and it's also not on the extreme of like law school's my life, and if I don't pass, if I don't get A's, I'm gonna die. Like you are very much in the middle. Like I absolutely love that, and so your content is you're doing what you want to do. Let me just say like you're achieving the goal. So the thing I wanted to bring up was one. I love the point you brought up about having friends outside of law school. That's very hard to do as an adult because like where are you gonna find these people? And if it's easier if you like are a person of faith and you like can go to a church or whatever. But like if you don't have that, like how are you gonna find outside friends? But for you, you had your undergrad friends because you went to undergrad in that area. So I feel like that's really really important and really pivotal. And if you don't have friends outside of law school who are in the physical area, I feel like it's really helpful to stay connected to people who are outside of law school, like your family, your friends from like undergrad, even if they don't live near you. I feel like that is so underrated. No one talks about how important it is to have non-law school friends. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. And then I kind of wanted to talk about bar review. I don't think I've mentioned bar review on this channel before. So can you explain what bar review is?
Yeah, of course. So basically, bar review is where your school's SBA picks a bar or brewery, restaurant, whatever that serves alcoholic drinks. Typically once a week. I know some schools do it with less frequency. My school does it every single week. So every single Thursday, we pick a bar. Well, I don't pick a bar. Sometimes I do. Our SBA picks a bar and just says like 9 o'clock, everybody meet here. You're all gonna like hang out essentially. I came into law school thinking it was like a study group or like bar prep situation. And then I got here and I was like, okay, I guess we're all going to the bar taking cherry bombs, apparently. It has been like a fantastic way to socialize and talk to people who you don't normally see or talk to at school. Cause I mean, alcohol and just like being around each other always like brings out more conversation, I feel like, which has its pros and its cons. And it's also like the source of like all the drama if you like go constantly and you see everything. But I think in like small doses, it can be a really great time. but to each their own.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it definitely is a personality thing because I'm not a bar review person at all. I've been to one in my like 1.5 years of being in law school.
Mhm.
I think it's just a personality thing, and like you can definitely find your people there. I know people who found like really great people
Mhm.
by going to bar review very often. So just find your thing. I'm also really curious because I know. So I actually don't know. I think I because I know because I follow you. But I want to talk about like how your career aspirations have changed over time, and then I also want to talk about your summer experience. I know that was like a whew, I know it's like a very personal thing. So those two things, yeah, just tell us about that.
Yeah. Originally, when I applied to law school, I applied thinking I wanted to do something immigration-y, criminally, maybe family-ish stuff. I didn't really understand the separation between litigation and transactional. And once I got to school and I was in contracts, I said, "Ooh, boy, I do not want to litigate. I like this stuff. I like picking out the issues and picking out the problems and like what people should have done before it got to litigation." And so I would like bring up things in class where my contracts professor was like, yeah, that's actually like a lawyering issue, not so much a litigation issue. And then once I got kind of into second semester and I was in property and doing that kind of work, I was like, okay, I need to figure out something that is not in like the sphere of going to court. I'm not a big brief writer, did not enjoy that process, would rather stick to the memos and the smaller things and, keep it clean. And over the summer, I actually did like a lot of litigation work, like the research kind of things, which I didn't mind, but I don't love the finished product of those kind of projects. And then I also got to do like some corporate stuff and learned about corporate forms and creation and dissolution. And then I also asked for a tax project and I asked for an IP project. Since I do have the hard science background, because I ended up doing chem and Spanish. So technically, I'm patent bar qualified, like I could take it. And then I just randomly had an interest in tax. Second semester, I was looking at the course, like the course list explanations for this semester that I'm currently in. And tax law just like jumped out at me. It was like the beginning class, federal income. I was like, I need to take this class. I need to talk to people who do tax. Something about this is calling to me. That's what I say. And so over the summer, I did get to do a tax project, did end up really liking it. And so I came into this semester being like, okay, now it's between tax and IP, which is like a huge pivot from immigration crim. And then I talked to one of our deans who was actually like a huge tax person. She clerked in tax court, did a bunch of stuff with it. And I said, what do I need to do to be a tax attorney? And she actually set me up with some alum to talk to. So I've just been like networking, talking to people, just like being nerdy about tax because I actually really love it. And so I feel like this is the right path for me. So tax law is what I want to do now.
That's so unique. I feel like I've never heard anyone ever say that. Everyone's just like that's. But I think the perception is that it's very like boring and very like drony. But I love that you like have found your niche. I think it's also important that like, a lot of people can relate to coming into law school wanting to do one thing and then like exploring and be like, wait, actually, never mind. Like actually like seeing what else the law has to offer and then choosing and deciding. So
Mhm.
like yeah, I feel like for me like I was very tunnel visioned and I still am very tunnel vision, but not everyone can be that way. Like that's not the healthiest thing for everyone. So I love that you're like offering different perspective. Like you don't have to come in. First of all, you don't have to come in and know what you want to do.
Right.
Like this is the opportunity to figure out
Mhm.
what you want to do. So I love that you're honing in on your thing. So yeah. So your summer experience. Talk more about that, and also talk about that rare experience you had of yeah the callbacks.
Yes. Yeah. So essentially, I weirdly got my job before school. So I went through like a pre 1L OCI because it came along with the fellowship that I'm a part of, which is like my scholarship fund situation. So it was just kind of like a bonus. I could take it or I could just say, like, no, thanks. That's not an experience I want. But I was like, I do want firm experience. I'll try it. I ended up really liking it. I loved the firm. I loved like everybody that I worked with. It was a super fun time. All the summer associates were great. It was 9 weeks long. And we actually got sent to a client for a week. So we got to be in-house for a week, which was super cool. I feel like I got like invaluable experience working on projects, networking, doing all of those things. Towards the end of the summer, we had our final reviews, and essentially they were like, listen, one, we overhired for the summer, so there are going to be people who weren't going to get offers. And two, the recession is coming. So like it's likely that you're going to be up against very, very, very competitive candidates, and we're going to be hiring less. So myself and the other 1L, there was only 2 of us. We knew going in to like our last week, basically, that it was sort of unlikely that we would get hired, even though it is semi unusual for the fellows not to get hired back. So I think after my final review, I already had like felt the pain of like the rejection, like the brunt of it. And so I went into like finishing the program, just like, you know, talking to everybody, giving everybody thank you cards, like just enjoying it while it lasted kind of situation. And then like a couple weeks afterwards, we got the call saying like, oh, we picked X amount of people. We don't have enough spots, da 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 da, because there were like, you know, whatever factors they did. So like the recession and like how many people they were hiring and grades and work and projects and all those kind of things. So essentially they just called both of us and they were like, yep, this is the situation. We won't be hiring on, but since we're fellows, we're still connected to the firm forever. Like I will have to like go to firm events forever and like sit at galas for them forever kind of situation, which I personally really like, because while it is disappointing to face a rejection, it's also really nice to have that freedom without having to like go to them and say like, hey, no, I don't want to do this. It's like they set me free to have the option to like try other things. And who knows, maybe I'll end up back there. It's not like a hard no, you're never going to get hired here, but it's just like, for now, we don't have a spot for you on the teams that you wanted, because I wanted tax, but they wanted somebody older for the tax team. So it's like, it's so much puzzle piecing and jumbling together that like, you never know well where you'll end up. So I think it was like a blessing in disguise, honestly.
I love that attitude. That's so beautiful. Yeah, I definitely appreciate that perspective. I think you're like you said, like that is very rare for fellows not to be asked back. 1L fellows not to be asked back, but it's definitely possible. Like, and obviously, like I don't know if people know this in general, but the only thing there's like in general, like in the like typical way things work, you only have to do something really, really terrible. Like you really have to like royally fuck up. To like not be at.
Like, as long as you're nice and you do good work, like you'll be fine. And then towards the end of the summer, they were like, "Ooh, the economy."
Yeah. So I think like that's just I feel like it's also I think your story is just really important to share, because even though like the general sense is like you have to mess up.
Yeah.
Life just life just happens. So yeah, I just appreciate your perspective. I appreciate that optimistic, positive, like this is a blessing in disguise. Like it's probably it's opening doors for you that you don't even know that you needed to have open. So I just really love that. I have a couple more questions. So I wanted to talk. I think I don't remember what context we were talking about this in. Maybe you don't remember either. But I want to talk about the influence of like administration on your law school experience, and also your experience with professors.
Okay. In general, I would say I don't have like a super close relationship with most of them. The dean that worked in the tax kind of world, I do have a pretty good relationship with her. And I just like, she is actually our advisor for our Bolsa. So we all go over there and like have like dinner with her like once a semester. So we had that. And she's just somebody that is like very easy to talk to. She's like a huge resource. And she also does a lot of the EDI stuff. So anytime something happens, it goes through her. And she's like pretty great about it. Luckily, which is hard in like an admin position like that. And then we have like an assistant dean of students situation. I've never like talked to our like dean, but I've talked to the assistant dean, and she works with like career stuff, just personal relationship things and stuff like that. And I went to her once a semester for my immigration class and talked to her about it. She was super great. And I talked to her like a few times one a year, just like school and figuring things out and stuff like that. So far from like my personal experience, it feels like they have done what they can, but it's not like they're going above and beyond, unless it's like interpersonal things, like they can really support you that way. But I think in like an admin sense or like a class professor sense, it's not always things that they think they're capable of doing or are in a position to just be like, hey, this professor, like you need to get your ish together. It's like a whole longer process, lots of meetings, they figure their stuff out, and we're not privy to it until the end when they've, you know, like made a decision or the professor said something like, oh, I've been getting reported a lot for my comments, you know. That has never happened in like my class sections, but professors will make comments about like prior semesters where like they would get reported for comments. So yeah, it's interesting. My professors so far have been like pretty decent. I butted heads a little bit with my con law professor last year, and I ended up emailing him. I made a few TikToks about it, and I'm pretty sure he's seen them. Because I was like, listen, you like use some language in class that we don't appreciate. Like, we're keeping track. Like, we have a tally going in our notes. So best believe we have the evidence, my friend. And he was just like, we talk about controversial things, blah, 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 da, da, da. I said, I don't care. But he never said it again in class. So, woo. And then he never called on me. And I was like, you don't want to tussle.
Look, a win is a win. A win is a win at this point. Like, as long as he stopped, like, I take that as, like, we won. But I feel like that sucks, though, like, because then you no longer. But I mean, do you like being cold called, though? I mean, I feel like it's a blessing in disguise. Like,
Yeah,
low key.
I mean, I'm much more of like I really want to like contribute to a discussion. I don't necessarily just want to like answer questions. I think like the only cold calls that I haven't like minded have been in my tax law class because I'm just like doing math problems and like that's decently easy for me. So I'm like, okay, like 20% of 200 grand, like it's not the worst thing ever. When it's like, I had that's with my torts professor too, because he had me on call for this case and I answered a question. He was like, I don't think that's really right. And I was like, well, it says right here in my notes that that's what it is. And then he asked the class, and two men basically said the same exact thing as me. So I raised my hand and I said, so what was wrong with my answer? And he was like, oh, I didn't really understand it. Like, could you say it again? And I said it again. And he was like, oh, no, you were right. And I was like, interesting how that works.
Wow. Wow. That is unacceptable. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's gonna go into my next question to talk about your experience as a woman of color in law. I mean, that's the experience. That's a big part of the experience. Like, that's wild. That's crazy. Do you have any other interesting like woman of color stories that you feel like other people like should know coming in, like should not even expect? I feel like you never want someone to like come in expecting the worst, but like just like things that you've experienced that you're just like, I wish I had known.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the biggest things is like we all see each other, but then everybody also sees us. And especially in spaces like law schools, which are usually PWIs, there's not a lot of us. Like, there's not a lot of people. There's not a lot of names that people can't pronounce. There's not a lot of brown faces. Like, people just don't always identify those things. And actually, we kind of talked this the last time we talked about this, the last time we talked a little bit. Like, the more educated I've gotten, the less people treat me badly. However, with a caveat, mostly because they don't know how to treat me badly. And so they usually go with like Latina, Hispanic stereotypes instead of like what's more accurate, because people are just like, well, what's in Morocco? Because they don't know what diversity there, what races exist there, all that kind of stuff. So that's like
That's a whole other can of worms. Oh my gosh. Like when you're like racially ambiguous, like people don't even know how to like be racist towards you. They just like have to treat you right. That's wild. That's wild. That's wild. That's wild. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have two more questions. This is like personal. So I feel like we talked about it last time and you were okay with this. So let's talk about it. I want to talk about potentially dating in law school. Like, obviously, there's not like women's law schools where like all the women can just be and enjoy themselves. Like, there are men in law school, and as a person who came from a women's college, like for me that was very much like, this is why I don't want to go to co-ed school, because like I get distracted. So, anyways, I feel like for you, I'm really curious how your experience has been dating in law school, but like talking to people in law school. Yeah.
Yeah. I think in general, I have like a don't meddle kind of approach, because I came in and literally everybody got assigned their mentors, and everybody's mentor was like, do not talk to anybody at school. Do not like mess around with anybody at school. Just like leave it alone. And I was like, okay. And I was kind of like fresh off a breakup that I initiated, that I did. So I was just kind of like, well, I want to be done with that. Like, I want to get over that. And I was still kind of talking to him when 1L began, because he was going through it and I wanted to be kind and patient, but it just ended up being too much. And I was like, I can't help you through this. I'm so sorry, but like, that's not really my place anymore. And I think it's just going to make it worse for us in the long run. So I ended up just like completely cutting him off, being like, no contact, let's leave each other alone kind of situation. And after that, I just kind of went into school like, I'm here for school, I'm doing my thing, whatever. there did end up being like somebody at school that like caught my eye. So I was like a little flirty with, I shot my shot, whatever. And we ended up spending like most of my 1L year like hanging out and like going out and stuff like that. And then towards the end of my 1L year, I was like, okay, going into the summer, like, what's the move? What are you thinking? And he was like, I kind of like somebody, so we'll see what happens. Yeah. And I was like, okay, cool, thanks for letting me know. And then we just like left it at that, and we're like very cool. But I think in general that's not always people's experiences. I'm just like that because I'm extremely straightforward. I'm like, this is what I'm looking for. Do you want this? Do you not want this? What are we doing? And so that was really good for that situation, because I was just like, are we on the same page? We still want to do the same thing. If not, cool, we'll cut it, whatever. And that's what ended up happening. But also like simultaneously, I had like a little flame from undergrad that also lives here. So he's like always in my back pocket, And then like the whole summer, literally I was just working. So I was like working, I moved apartments. So I was just like vibing, doing work, nothing was going on. I think in general, I like have the attitude of like, you don't need to seek it out, but if something comes across your path, do what you want. My mentor told me, she was like, I'm not going to tell you not to do anything, but be careful. Everybody's always going to be in your business. It's high school. Everybody sees. It's like that TikTok audio that's like, everybody knows. Everybody knows. And we do, like, it just gets around. So you just have to be able to handle it if it ends up doing that. Otherwise, I really don't think it matters. We're all adults. You find somebody that you really like, or you really, vibe with, do your thing.
Yeah, I love that advice. I think I like what you're like, what that whole I think of like, don't seek it out, but if someone catches your eye, like, be open to it. Like, don't like be like, I can never be a law student. Like that, it can be like, I feel like you just never know. Like, you just never know like what could come across your path, and like that could be the start of something really, really beautiful. Like, I don't know. Don't cut yourself off, but also don't come into law school be like, I'm gonna find my husband. Like, sit down.
No,
like, stop it.
do not think that, because I have always said like the women in law school are just substantially more attractive than the men. So like, God bless you. Good luck.
Literally, that is so true. You don't have a lot of options to start with, sis. So like, just relax. Like, you don't. So, okay, our final question. Thank you so much so far. This has been so much fun. But our final question is, what advice would you give to other people who want to go to law school?
I think for me personally, I wish I would have taken more gap years, not necessarily for like application reasons, like doing better on the LSAT or like having a bulkier application or resume, not really for those reasons, but just like life reasons. Even though I only had like a year between, there are just so many things that happen at school in like the high school vibiness that I just don't participate in, and to like see, but I just don't understand. And then that ends up being like a whole thing, because it's like, why are you not participating in that? Like, why are you outside the zone? And it's not like I can have the excuse of like, oh, I'm 30, I've lived a life, I'm married, or whatever. It's like, I'm like 24, but also you guys are acting ridiculous. Like, what are you doing? And I think I just wish I would have had like more time to just work and like live a life. While I am living a life, it's just not the same as like being an adult, working, doing your thing, which I personally really enjoyed, because I love a structure. I love a schedule. I'm not getting graded. I'm just doing my job, giving my best every day, living my life. And I think that that's a lot more manageable than law school, honestly.
That is really good advice. I definitely agree. I think that a lot of people who come straight through have not experienced that life. Like, people who just go from undergrad to law school, so they're still like in that mode of thinking. That's that very like collegey, high school energy. So when you kind of have a mature mindset about life, like, it's difficult to be in those environments. You're just like, I thought we were like, we're in grad school. Why are we acting like we're in high school? Like, it's weird. But I definitely agree. I think a lot of people are very scared of taking gap years because they feel like they'll never go back.
Yeah.
You will. If it's really a passion of yours, if really a desire of yours, like, you will go back. You'll find the time. You'll find a way. And it is like hard. Like, when you start making money, you start getting really, really comfortable in that space. It's hard. It's hard to go back, but like, if the desire is strong enough, you definitely will. So don't be afraid to take multiple gap years.
Yeah, it's worth it. I think the only downside is you have more to put on your character and fitness when you apply, and you have to put everywhere you've lived, everywhere you've worked, all that kind of stuff. But I think like also kind of tying it back to the dating thing, I see a lot of my friends going through like a crisis of like, why am I not romantically successful? Why am I not dating in law school and those kind of things? And it's just like, that's not our priority right now. Like, it's fine if it's something that you want, you crave, and you like look for, but you also have so many other things going on. It'll happen when it happens. You'll come
Right,
up.
time and place, time and place. I love that. I definitely agree. I think that's a huge thing that people do worry about in law school. Is like your career is doing, you're like, you're doing amazing, like you're achieving these high things, but it's like your romantic life is kind of like dead. But like time and place, it'll happen when it happens.
Yep.
So I love that.
Also, like, you make time for what you want.
Facts. Absolutely, that's very true. That's very. So if you have a desire to be like partnered as a law student, like you can do it. Like it's definitely possible for you. So interesting.
I mean, think of all the married people, all the engaged people, all the people coming in with serious relationships. If they can do it and their partner has a whole career, a whole job, they're going to a different kind of school, they can do it, you can do it.
Exactly. Absolutely. I definitely agree. I love this conversation. This was so good. Thank you so much, Sophia. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we're going to stop it here. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. I personally think everyone should follow your like your Instagram, your TikTok. Like I feel like you, like I said before, you just like show very like like you just show what it's like to be a normal law student. Like you're not like super like I said, like law school's my life, but you're also not like law school doesn't matter. Like you recognize that it matters. And I also love like the fact that you are private about where you go to law school, because I think that there's sometimes we have like I think law students can be a little bit overly like I don't even know what the thing is. Like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like we kind of just share too much. But I love that you keep some things close to your heart, and I think that I just really admire that about you. So yeah, I also love your personality. I feel like you have a really great personality to like be on TikTok and be on Instagram. Like you just like you show up, and it's like there's light there. And I love that like in like your even like in an intellectual in intellectual situations like a classroom where you are a woman of color, like you have the gumption, the gall, right, to be like absolutely not. Like I said that, like you know what I mean, to raise your hand and not let these people like run over you. Like I just want to give you your flowers now because I feel like you're doing the damn thing, and I just thank you for this like taking your time to talk to me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I loved it.
Yes.